Good morning. This will be a little tour of our garden and all of our plants, and maybe just a peek at what's in store for that area back there. The video comes from Fredonia, New York, which is near Buffalo. So bonsai, we've been getting into these starting last summer, and here they are. It's a nice looking lot, eh? I'll start with this one. It's in hospice now, maybe hopefully not hospice, but just kind of the intensive care. A beautiful Japanese maple seedling given to me by the parents of a very good friend. There were three initially, but you can see one is doing kind of okay, and then there's another one that might hang on if we're lucky, and one that unfortunately passed. So here's all of the bonsai, and if we're being really strict, a lot of these are just nursery bushes that have been put in pots, and so I guess by some definition they are. This is Douglas, the beautiful dwarf Alberta spruce, and this is a ginseng ficus, that bizarre root, don't you think? Just got from Home Depot and then repotted with better soil. And these blue star junipers, very, very interesting plants. This was the very first one I got last year, and it survived all winter in New York, piled with feet of snow, and it did just fine. This is my son's, called James Bonsai. He loves puns and wordplay. Very, very cool. More juniper. This is one I'm very fond of, and I forget what it's called. I'd have to look at my notes, but it looks like a small tree, which makes me quite happy. This is Gordon, named after my grandfather. It's a cousin to James Bonsai. These two I'm proud of in a sense because I pulled them out of our yard last summer and wired them, as one does with bonsai, and put moss on them that I sent my son up onto the roof to get down. I mean, he loves that sort of thing. This one is very, very cool. Also from the garden. Just pulled up. We didn't want it growing a big tree in our garden. This one, very cool. Very cool. It's just a juniper. It was $5 at Home Depot. As were these guys. All $5, half off. This is Millie. I'll have to move back for Millie because she's so splendid. Named after my grandmother. It's a smoke bush, and it's got these incredible, also called a young lady, these incredible growth here that I guess maybe where it gets its name. Looks like smoke. Another blue star juniper, very nice. And then we're trying to propagate these things so that we can start doing it for next to nothing. And then a Korean arbor vitae, which I chopped away at a bit too enthusiastically. I felt bad about that, especially given that it's my wife's grandmother, or at least it's named after her, Jungjo. And then just pulling up trees and putting them in little pots. This is where we work. And when we took a walk the other day, I snuck into somebody's yard and took this cutting from a favorite Japanese maple in town, a lace leaf maple. And I'm hoping that something appears here. It's my favorite tree in the entire village. Okay, we'll take a walk. These also just $5 each from Home Depot. Look at that beautiful spruce. That's going to be very special. We might not turn that into a bonsai. We might just plant it. A very modest garden. And I'm desperately sore today because I pulled all of these out of this garden, these trees, and put them into pots. And some of them I think could make really incredible bonsai trees. Like, look at this one here. If they survive the repotting. This one has an enormous trunk, and I had to chop away at the roots like a maniac, and I hope it survives. But Oh man, those were hard to pull up. Oh, my back is aching. So this area, there's big plans for. Big plans. And it's been 1 to 2 hours work every morning for the last 2 months. There's an interesting story behind this beautiful Japanese maple. It comes from my second favorite tree in town. When we first got our dog Beans back in February, he bit another dog out in the walk in the first week, and it was horrifying. And the woman whose dog this was understandably horrified too. And we figured out where she lived, and I kind of avoided seeing her for a long time. Well, my wife, who's very friendly and chatty, got to know this woman and apologized about our dog biting her dog. And we were walking our dog maybe a few weeks ago and went and met her. Her name's Patty, and she's so sweet. And not only did she forgive us for our dog biting her dog, but she gave us this cutting from her beautiful maple. Not a cutting, actually. It's a seedling that started growing in the ground. And she also gave us a beautiful succulent. What a sweetie. So we made her a bonsai and delivered it to her. This pile of rock here is going to be an Inukshuk. It was. But the one I made looked like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. So we knocked it down, and I'm going to have one of my sons work on something a little bit better, less goofy. Home Depot has these rumble blocks for on clearance, and so every time we go, we get about 10 or 15. This has been a big labor lately. My son Manny and I made this bench, and again, this is to the limit of our carpentry skills. It's just a board that we took a chainsaw to give it a bit of some contour and a sander. And as you can already see, a bird has had its way with this bench only one day after it went up. So this will be the cost of trying to have civilization in nature. But that's fine. That's no problem. This rope goes down the cliff here to the creek. We thought about putting a pond into our garden back here. But as my wife so sort of smartly said, how silly would that be? We have the sound of a pond here and the water, and it's free and we don't have to keep it up. And Mother Nature takes care of that. This is a little place where we just sit and look out over the creek. Very nice. So now I'm going to have to trudge through where a path is eventually going to go. We're going to make a path through here. And this is wild, just like a jungle. So we'll have to go through and do some things. But this little beautiful hill that crests, can't you just see it? This could be such the most beautiful and wonderful place to walk. I know this stuff is invasive, the ivy and whatnot, but it's just so darn pretty. So the path will continue here. My son Manny and I had to chainsaw this to make room for our path. It was quite an adventure. But I'd highly recommend getting a chainsaw. It'll be the funnest thing you own. There's the house here. Trying to decide what to do. All the refuse and growth that we've cut has ended up in this big pile. And we're going to have to get rid of that eventually. And what to do here? Don't know. I was thinking of putting in a shed. To store everything we're going to need to keep this up. So that's the yard and the garden. And that's Manny's, the youngest one's, favorite tree. So we're doing everything we can to protect it and make sure that it lives. This beautiful pine will not be here forever. In fact, I'd be surprised if it makes it another year. It will fall down, and where it falls, who knows? We just hope it won't do too much damage. All right. Well, hope you've enjoyed the tour of our garden and the plans that we have, and have a lovely day.